Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening for those of you who are in a different time zone, or good morning for those of you who are further back. Welcome to the fourth in the webinar series, the Growing Green Minds Climate Education Webinars, content and methods for high school teachers. This afternoon's topic is teaching sustainability through debate. And with us, we have Tom Dawson and Anastasia Ellis. So just a little bit about our speakers this afternoon. Tom Dawson is an archaeologist working in the School of History at the University of St. Andrews. And for the past 20 years, Tom has researched the impacts of climate change on coastal heritage. He also works with communities to record threatened sites using film to document projects and inform the public about climate risks. He has made numerous appearances in front of camera, so he has this natural ability with the camera. He has used his experience of working in TV to create filmmaking modules for St. Andrews students, and his latest venture is in collaboration with Anastasia Ellis, is a module which invites students from various departments and years of study to work together to create a documentary explaining climate impacts and using heritage as a focus. And with him this afternoon, Anastasia Ellis is an evolutionary development biologist and working in the School of Biology, also at the University of St. Andrews. During her PhD, Anastasia discovered a passion for heritage and community development, and she has designed and developed several university programs, particularly on how to promote and preserve local heritage sites. Working closely with university students and local charities, Anastasia facilitates these cross-university collaborations to develop students' understanding and awareness of local and culturally important heritage sites, as well as the sustainable practices needed to ensure their longevity. Her latest collaboration with Tom Dawson is whereby they created a module to examine climate changes, as mentioned, the impact on the heritage sites through the medium of film. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Tom and Anastasia, and thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. So over to you, Tom and Anastasia.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan, for that introduction. I will share the slides for everyone. Okay, can I just confirm that people can see the slides? Okay, I have a thumbs up. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Anastasia Ellis. So as Ryan said, I work at the University of St. Andrews, and I am delighted to be here tonight with my colleague, Professor Dawson, to talk about our kind of new module that we have made about teaching sustainability through filmmaking, specifically looking at climate impacts on cultural heritage sites. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about why we use films in education, or why we should be using films in education, how we can use films to discuss kind of very current and very emotive topics such as climate change. We'll talk a little bit about our module. I say we, this will be Tom. Tom will be telling you about our module and how it's going so far and some of our student outputs, and as well a little bit about the kind of climate impacts that he studies. And we will be kind of wrapping up today's session with a mini give it a go session. I am a great advocate for learning through doing. And so those that are staying for the workshop, we will be asking you to make your own mini film about climate impacts. So first of all, why should we use films to teach? Really, stories are very, very powerful. We learn the difference between right and wrong through stories, and it teaches us a lot about other cultures, other people's thoughts and opinions. And stories shape our moralities and shape us as individuals. They influence our values. So we are kind of what we consume. Depending on the media that we engage and interact with, will change how we view certain kind of topics and how we view ourselves. Specifically, using films to teach is a very powerful tool for teaching. we know that there are different learning styles and different learning preferences within a classroom. And if we boiled it down, we would kind of boil it down to 3 specific learning styles. That's auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learning. And the great thing about using films to teach is that we've already ticked 2 of these boxes. We engage with films with our kind of hearing and with our visual senses as well. Not only do we kind of cover these 2 different learning styles, by using films, it actually allows us to retain more of the information we've seen in the films. So you guys might have seen this kind of little quote before. It comes in various different, it comes in different variations, but most of the time people have seen this of saying, most people remember/learn 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 30% of what they see, 50% of what they see and hear. So as well as catering to a diverse variety of different learning styles, it also allows people to engage and remember the content a lot better than they would have if you just give them a passage to read from a book. Also with films, we're kind of seeing a shift in how we educate people. So nowadays, if we don't know how to do something, we no longer really go down to the library. I say we don't. Most of the time, we don't go to the library, borrow a book, read the manual, and learn how to do something that way. Most of the time now, if we don't know how to do something or we want to find out how something works, we pick up our phones and we Google it. So the first things we think of is, let me Google that. Let me watch a video on how to assemble this if you're, say, assembling a bit of IKEA furniture, or it's something along the lines of, what does this actually look like? And this shows our kind of increasing dependence on the internet to answer our questions. And this is very much the same with young people nowadays. With the kind of COVID pandemic, this probably like expedited this process. But nowadays, young people learn increasingly through online content. We're seeing a kind of culture shift of teaching from textbooks to now teaching online and incorporating online content within lesson plans, within lesson materials. And so films and using films and videos is a great way to engage and to kind of use or change how we educate people in order to kind of best suit people's preferences in learning new content. So I've given a bit of background of like why we should use films. The question is, why should we use films to specifically teach climate change? And I'll get around to answering this question in a minute. But first, I wanted to look at the current or the films out there at this moment in time and look at how they currently discuss climate change. So I have assembled this little mood board of some current films that people might have seen. A lot of these films do have a common thread, but I'm just going to go through a couple of them. So if we look at, I just get a laser pointer, sorry. If we start here, we have this film here called Soylent Green. This was released in about the 1970s, and it was the first true cli-fi film, as in climate fiction film. And the kind of basis of the story is that we're in New York City. It's turned into a desolate wasteland. There's not enough food to feed people. There's a series of murders, and this gentleman, this detective, is trying to find out who is basically murdering these people. But the premise of this film is based on a different world to what we see nowadays, based on the impacts of climate change. We can't grow enough food to feed the population. And this kind of theme is seen a lot of time throughout many of the films on this screen. So we have The Day After Tomorrow, which was a Hollywood kind of hit, where basically a story as old as time, an environmental scientist is ignored, his predictions have come true, and we're seeing the aftermath of the changes to the Earth's climate. We also see a lot of kind of newer films like Mad Max. We see Interstellar, the Earth is no longer habitable. There's been a collapse of civilization, and the Earth, as we once knew it, has completely changed. If we look at children's films as well, this is a very similar theme where the impact of global warming has had an impact on the environment and people have had to change because of it. And a lot of the time with these films, it's always portrayed in a negative light. And this is a slight problem with climate change and how it's communicated in media and in entertainment nowadays. When we look at climate change on the screen, it's often depicted with like fire and brimstone. There's this like apocalyptic vision that hardly leaves any room for kind of like a hopeful human response. And this means that whenever we talk about it, we don't feel like we have a sense of agency that we can change this. There is no hopefulness of like saying that climate change is happening, but we can do something about it. And what's even more interesting is the kind of recent shift in how climate change is mentioned. So I don't know if anybody has seen the remake of Twister. Controversially, I preferred the original, and I'm sure I'm not the only one with this opinion in here. But in the most recent remake of Twister, the film itself is very scientifically accurate. However, in the film, they do not mention the word climate change at all. Not once in the film do they mention this. And for a film that's whole premise is based on the increased frequency of extreme weather events, not mentioning climate change is a little bit mind-boggling. Like, why aren't we talking about this? And this leads me on to my next point of climate silences. So this is where people will specifically not talk about climate change. And Twister is an example of this. So climate silences is this kind of well-known and quite well-documented phenomenon in current entertainment and current media. There was a recent charity or a recent study by a charity in America where they kind of quantified this. And what they did was they collected all the scripts that were submitted in the US from 2016 to 2020, and they analyzed all the scripts for climate change words. Well, the word climate change and kind of climate change adjacent words. So words like global warming, sea level rise, solar panels, renewable energy, ocean acidification. And what they found was that out of like 40,000 TV scripts and film scripts, 0.56% of them mentioned the word climate change. That's about 200 scripts out of 40,000, which is a very, very small amount. They then expanded their search to look for like a greater variety of words related with climate change. And again, they only found 2.8% of scripts mentioned these words at all. Now, just to give this a little bit of context, the word dog, in comparison, was mentioned 13 times more than all of the 36 climate keywords combined. This kind of indicates that there's almost a repression in media of talking about climate change and climate impact. Yet while there is this almost repression on talking about climate change, there is a kind of appetite for us to talk about climate change and what it means. So this is the Google Trends. So at the end of every year, Google does a kind of look back on the year and publishes data on what was the most Googled names, Google News, or just Google search terms in general. And in 2019, Greta Thunberg made the list. So whilst we're not explicitly talking about climate change in media, there is an appetite. People do want to find out more about it and do want to find out about related aspects of climate change and what they can do. So I kind of wanted to open the floor a little bit and make use of the chat function. So I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds. And I want you to put in the chat, what emotion do you feel when you hear the phrase climate change? And I'm going to ask Ryan to keep an eye on the chat and let us know the kind of Google trends of the chat, or what is the most kind of common words, the trends in the words. So I'll give you guys about 30 seconds. Okay, I think that's around about 30 seconds now. So Ryan, if I can ask you to tell us the trends of the emotions people feel.
Okay, so the immediate one that comes up is fear, and along with fear and a similar emotion to fear, we have uncertainty, we have anxiety, we have sadness, and interesting, out of everyone who put in an emotion, all of them were negative, but there was one, Gabby, and Gabby wrote hope, which is out of all the list, is the one that's actually positive. There is a sense of hope for Gabby. So it's good to see there's some positive emotion, but the majority are fear, anxiety, and a sense of, sadness and anger is, yeah. So, okay.
Okay.
Back to you. Okay.
Thank you very much, guys, for sharing your thoughts on it. So I agree with you all. So when I thought about this earlier, I also thought about the emotions I personally feel when discussing climate change, and very similar to all of you. Again, the emotions that I feel are fear, panic, guilt, apprehension, and there is a new term called eco-anxiety, which is anxiety specifically related to climate change events. But there is hope. So Gabby, thank you for putting hope in as like a nice aside. With these emotions as well, we're not the only ones who feel this. So when we look at kind of young adults and children, there's been a lot of studies surveying them and asking them how they feel about the future of the planet and their thoughts and opinions on climate change. There was a very recent article in The Lancet that was published, and they surveyed young adults and they quantified their responses. And the two main findings are displayed on this screen here. 84% of children and young adults are moderately worried about climate change, and about 60% of them are very or extremely worried about it and what it means for them. And when we think about what we've discussed so far, we have shown that, okay, when we have films that talk about climate change, it's portrayed in a light where it's the apocalypse, it's the end of the world, we're all going to kind of die because of what we've done to the planet. As well as a lot of people refusing to talk about it, the climate silences, nobody wants to talk about it at all. And it's almost kind of portrayed as the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it's there, but nobody wants to deal with it or talk about it at all. And so this is the emotion that young people feel, and it kind of makes sense. It's like, what did we think they would feel? We've created this kind of condition in the society where we don't talk about it, we purposely repress it in media, and therefore it creates a lot of anxiety about what that actually means. So then how do we change this? How do we start to talk about climate change in a different way, and to talk about climate change in more hopeful terms and in a more specific context? So that's where Tom and I come in. We're not going to solve the climate change crisis, but we hope with our VIP we'll start talking about it in a more balanced way. So with talking about climate change, we need a lot more balance. We can't just talk about climate change of being, it's going to be an apocalyptic world and we're going to have to try and survive in that world. We need to talk about climate impacts in specific topics, because how you talk about climate change in, say, politics or geography or in history is going to be completely nuanced and different. So this is what we're doing in our VIP, or in our module, sorry, it's called a VIP. We're talking about climate change and we're talking about the facts behind it, and we're delivering it to the audience in an engaging and informative way, specifically in regards to climate change, or specifically in regards to heritage sites and climate change's impact on these heritage sites. And so now I'm going to be passing over to my colleague, Professor Dawson, to talk a little bit more about this.
Great. Can you see that, everyone? Yep. Brilliant. That's not gone full screen. Full screen. Brilliant. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for coming along. My name's Tom, and I am an archaeologist. And for the last 25 years, I've been working on heritage sites that are at risk from sea level rise, coastal erosion, and natural processes. And obviously, natural processes are being accelerated by climate change. Now, of course, every few years, the IPCC brings out their reports. And archaeologists in America, well, in fact, not just archaeologists, it was an organization called the Union of Concerned Scientists, realized that heritage was a great way of getting climate skeptics to start thinking about climate change. So this was at a time when, just before Donald Trump was president last time, they brought out this report, and they were aiming the report, the National Landmarks at Risk report, at those conservative Americans who didn't necessarily believe in climate change, but they loved all of their monuments. So here we see the fort at St. Augustine. This is the oldest stone building in the mainland United States. It's a Spanish fort, but they focused on places like St. Augustine, but also the Statue of Liberty. And they spoke about what has happened and what will happen in the future to these places if climate change carries on unabated. And this was a very, very successful campaign. Now, using heritage, therefore, is quite important, because heritage sites often are seen as the canaries in the coalfield. You know, in the olden days, people used to take canaries down, and if the canary died, you knew that you needed to run away, and so it was a sacrificial thing. Well, heritage sites in some ways are a little bit like that, because what happens to heritage sites is going to happen to other sites, the places that we live, our schools and our hospitals later on. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of the things that are affecting heritage sites. And we're starting off with temperature changes. Now, to start with, up in the northern regions, up in Alaska and Greenland and Norway and places like that, there is this remarkable preservation of organic material within the buried soils. And this is because the soil is acting as a great big freezer. But at the moment, temperatures up in the Arctic are rising up to 5 times faster than anywhere else. So they've seen a 5-degree increase in temperatures over the last few years. And this is causing the permafrost to melt. And when the permafrost melts, the oxygen can get back into the organic material. And so these middens, these places where these organic finds were located, are starting to decay. The organic materials within them are starting to decay. And so midden sites like this one, where you can see all of the animal bone, when archaeologists go there now, they're finding that up to 90% of that material has now disappeared. In a similar way, this is over on Svalbard, up in the very north of Norway. And here the wooden structures are being affected by new growths of plants, by fungi and bacteria, which are able to thrive because the temperatures have warmed, and this is causing the wood to decay. And then, of course, with temperature changes, we get forest fires, and we know that there's been a lot of forest fires recently. And here we can see a cabin which is just about to be engulfed. It's a historic building over the United States. But also we get older buildings. So this was a fire over in 2011, and here we have a Pueblo site which had a tree growing very close to it. And unfortunately, the tree caught fire, and that led to the destruction of the heritage site. And maybe something that you wouldn't normally think would be affected by things like forest fires are obsidian. This is the black glassy material. I think you get it in Italy for sure, but you also get it over in Mexico and the southern United States. And it is used to make these tools, these weapons, ceremonial objects. There's a beautiful obsidian point here. But if obsidian gets too hot, it actually starts to fuse and melt, just like hot glass. And here we see some fused vesiculated obsidian after a fire. And of course, the fires will kill off all the vegetation. The trees will all burn. And then when it starts to rain, the trees are no longer able to take up the water. The leaves don't protect the ground. And so you can end up with these gullies starting to form. And here we see some gullies from 2011 to 2013. This is the same spot. We can see this gully forming. And if there's any form of heritage site in that area there, that's going to be completely destroyed. This is all rather gloomy, isn't it? However, there is a point to this. Desertification is another one of the side effects of climate change on heritage sites. And obviously, and I want to emphasize this, these are all natural processes, and these things have always happened in the past. It's just that they're starting to happen a lot faster at the moment. So here is a picture of Abu Simbel, which of course ironically ended up being moved and placed on top of those hills there because of the Aswan Dam. But this is when it was first being explored by Westerners, and you can see that half the site was covered over by the desert. And here we see the World Heritage Site in Mauritania, and frequently, probably on a daily basis, people have to go in and sweep the sand away. This is a place which contains many ancient texts. It has a very important old mosque, and so they're continually having to remove the sand. Removing the sand is not such a big deal. However, these Nubian pyramids in Sudan, these are being affected as the desert moves in, because the sand is being picked up by the wind, and then it's acting as a sand blaster. And so on the left-hand side, you can see the state of the stonework in 1985. And so this is after, hundreds of thousands of years of existing. There's been hardly any damage, but between 1980 and the 30 years between the two photographs, we can see the wind abrasion caused by that sand absolutely taking away parts of the stonework. And this is removing the paintings and bas reliefs and all the rest of it. And temperature rise also leads to storms and cyclones and tornadoes. And this is Goodrich in Ontario, in Canada. And this was caused, what used to be known as the prettiest town in Canada, but a tornado went through there, and here's the devastating effects of that. And of course, we all know about Hurricane Sandy and the huge number of hurricanes that are hitting the southern United States, and sometimes traveling all the way up the coast and then coming in into New York or wherever. Here's the Statue of Liberty, and there was millions and millions of pounds worth of damage to Liberty Island and other places, other heritage sites, when that hurricane struck. And of course, hurricanes are happening all around the world, not just in the States. You get typhoons over in Japan and various other places. Climate change is also leading to more rainfall. And at the moment in the UK, we have many places which are under floodwater. And certainly, I mean, it's anecdotal, but to me, it seems like we're having far more floods at the moment than I can remember. And this is something that's happening the world over. And so here we see flooding at a World Heritage Site in Thailand. This is Bangladesh. And if you look at those buildings there, you can see where the bricks are kind of opened up. That's the level of the regular flooding, which is hitting these old buildings here. And of course, in Italy, and again, this is emphasizing that this isn't necessarily a new thing, and it's not always to do with climate change, but this is all to do with climate, or is all to do with weather. But here we see the great floods of 1966, which hit Florence and Venice, and there's the flood level there. And of course, as you will be very well aware, it caused terrible damage to manuscripts and paintings, works of art. Thousands and thousands of books in the National Library were affected. And here we have Cimabue's crucifix. And here it is when it was being rescued from the flood. And if we look at this here, we can see before and what the crucifix looks like now, all caused by the flooding. And then we get on to the part that I'm most involved in, and this is the sea level rise and coastal erosion. This is a view from Alaska, one of my colleagues, Ann Jensen. What's happening in some of the places up in the north is there used to be pack ice, and this would stop the storms from affecting the coast. But as the pack ice is melting, so the water is able to get up to the coast edge. And here again, you can see that the permafrost has preserved all the wooden structures within there, but here they've just tumbled down onto the beach. And this is an example that we were involved in up in Brora, up in the north of Scotland, where the local community showed us this wall, and we watched it for a little bit, and we saw more and more of this building starting to be exposed. So eventually we worked with the community. We took away all of the sand and the dune above it. And here are these, everybody in this picture is a member of the local community. They're not archaeologists, but we worked with them. We exposed this building and uncovered an entire salt pan dating to 1593. This was a place where they boiled seawater in order to make salt. We were able to remove the floor, so the floor has been half removed there. We took away all the artifacts. We made 3D models. We recorded absolutely everything, which was just as well, because within 2 years, the site looked like this. It was completely destroyed. And there is a similar pattern actually going on here in St. Andrews, where both Anastasia and myself are. So Anastasia, St. Andrews is a very small university town on the east coast of Scotland. This is our castle in 1580. But by 1693, when Sleazer depicted it, you can see that great chunks of the castle wall had fallen down, and that's because the cliff had collapsed. Okay, and this photograph, this is a very early photograph from 1846. Yep, from 1846. And here you can actually see all of the collapsed cliff underneath the castle. And so it's a very soft sandstone in this area of Scotland. But if we look at the view today, you can see that there is a wall running all along there. And the reason that that wall exists is because this was one of the very first places in Scotland where the government decided to build a seawall to protect heritage. So dating right back to 1885, they were making efforts to preserve the heritage site from disappearing due to the sea. Now, at the moment, climate change is making this kind of thing more prevalent. And so people are having to grapple with where to spend the money, what we should be prioritizing, what it is we should be doing in order to protect ourselves from climate change. And this is one of the things that we're trying to explore with young people. So every time we've been doing a project, we film absolutely everything. We make films about our community projects, but we also work with young people in those communities, and we get them to make films as well. So in this case here, you can actually see the young people are there behind the camera, and they made their own film. We were with them for a week showing them how to do this. And so we decided to, Anastasia and I decided to take this concept and bring it over to our own students. And we gave them a brief and we said, you must make a film. And the film has to be about heritage and it has to be about climate change. But apart from that, and it has to be focused on St. Andrews and the area around here. But apart from that, you can do whatever you want. Now, we didn't want to in any way lead them. We didn't know whether we had any climate skeptics within the group. We had no idea what sort of films they wanted to make. We allowed them to do either natural heritage or cultural heritage or a combination of the two. But what the main thing was, each one of the 15 students has to make a film this semester. They're all, I don't know if you understand the expression, they're all having kittens. They're all quite worried at the moment because their deadline is on Monday. So we're seeing them again tomorrow. But they've all had to make their own individual films this semester. And then next semester, they're going to work together to go and work in teams and make 1 or 2 full films all about climate change and heritage. And these will be about 45 minutes long. At the moment, they're just making 7 to 8 minute long documentaries. And for the last couple of minutes that I got here, I'm going to quickly run through to give you an idea of the different ways that the students have been tackling this subject. So Anna is talking about the importance of walking the coast around St. Andrews, and she's discussing how climate change is having an effect on the landscape and how that affects people who are interested in going for walks. Akina is taking a slightly unusual view. She's looking at the way that seagulls are coming in to the town and stealing food from the students and the tourists who come to St. Andrews, but she's linking this to the depletion of fish stocks due to the warming of the seas. And so the fish are moving away from the coast and the seagulls are coming in to feast from our food. Emily is also looking at fishing, but she's looking at the whole history of fishing. And again, at the way that the fish stocks have been moving, but also she's looking at the way that overfishing has contributed to the problem as well, because St. Andrews was a fishing town and many of the villages around here are fishing towns. Heather, and I believe that we're going to see a short clip from Heather's film in a minute, is making a tongue-in-cheek mockumentary. So she is making a comedy but it has a very, very serious point. And so she's looking at many of the traditions associated with St. Andrews, which is a university which is 600 years old, and she's looking at those traditions and then relating those to climate change. And one of those traditions is the students all dress up in red gowns and they walk to the end of the pier. But at the moment, they can't do that because there was a storm last year which destroyed part of the pier, and so the pier is closed because it is unsafe. And so she has a very sensible and pertinent message within a comedy film. Iha, again, slightly comic view, but again with a very serious message. She's gone down to St. Andrews golf course, which of course is one of the oldest in the world. And here we see a photograph of her dad at the 12th hole, her at the 12th hole, and then she's looking to the future and she thinks that the only people who'll be able to play golf there will be the seagulls because they don't mind getting wet. Isabella is looking at the tide and the way that the tide is causing erosion in different places. And she's fascinated by the effects of the moon and how the moon is combining with wind and climate change to cause these king tides, which are causing such dramatic and devastating damage. Joe has gone to the aquarium. We have an aquarium in St. Andrews, which had some seals in outside pools. And in the storm that destroyed part of our harbour, it also knocked down the wall that was holding the seals in. And so Joe is going through that whole story of the storm and what happened to the seals. And Keegan is looking at our university botanic gardens, because there they are growing plants for dune restoration. And she's doing interviews to talk about how the botanic gardens is helping to protect the golf course and other areas from the impacts of climate change. Maria is looking at our castle, and she's taking a very historical view. She's looking at the history of the castle and the way that the castle was held by the Protestant reformers for an entire year against some the French army. The French army couldn't get in, and yet, ironically, as we've already seen, the castle then fell down due to climate change. And Megan is making a film just looking at climate change and the way it is affecting multiple sites in St. Andrews. So a very interesting film. And she was off filming in the Botanic Gardens this morning. Rachel is a surfer, and she is making a film called Water People, and she's talking to a group of different people, many different people who have this love of the sea. So this is not only surfers, but the fisher folk, people who go sailing, people who make their living from the sea. And she's getting all the different perspectives on climate change and how they feel the climate change is affecting them at the present and how it may affect them in the future. Samuel is looking at the sea bathing pools. We used to have a lot of outdoor sea bathing pools in St. Andrews. These have now declined, ironically, partly because people have been getting onto jet aeroplanes and flying over to countries like Italy or Spain in order to go into warm water instead of getting hypothermia swimming here in Scotland. But he's looking at that whole way that the pools have declined, but at the same time, and then are now ironically being destroyed by climate change because they're not being maintained anymore. Sophia is she is looking at the whole Fife Coastal Path, and she's looking at ruined buildings all the way down the Fife Coastal Path. And Taz is she's making a competition. And she's putting the golf course up on the one hand and the castle on the other. And then she's getting people to choose which one should we save. Should we save the heritage associated with golf, or should we be saving the tangible heritage associated with the castle? Again, it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, but she has a very, very serious point behind it. And she's trying to make people think about climate change in an uplifting way. As is Ufuoma, who is making a film which will be very beautiful, and we've seen some of the clips from there, but she's thinking about green spaces and how climate change is affecting green spaces, but in a thoughtful in a way that is not going to be scaring people too much. And this is the one thing that she's desperate to avoid, is this whole idea of climate anxiety. So I've shared there our 15 films that are being made at the moment. The reason I've done that is to show you that the range of different ways that the students have approached this subject. We didn't in any way lead them as to what they had to do, but they've all come up with completely different ideas in this tiny little town here in St. Andrews. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and pass you back to Anastasia.
Thank you, Tom. So I shall just reshare my slides. Whilst I'm resharing my slides, so Tom made a comment about getting hypothermia in Scotland. And I would like to add to that and say that it is a St. Andrews tradition at this university. Just before the students' exams on May Day, we have something called May Dip, where everybody normally the night before goes out, potentially gets drunk, and then first thing in the morning runs into the North Sea, the freezing North Sea, to absolve them of their academic sins. So we don't always get hypothermia, but it is pretty cold when you do that. But if you ever come to St. Andrews, I would recommend that you do that. It's meant to be very good for mental health. Okay. Right. So I'm just very quickly run through Tom's slides again. But yeah, so like Tom said as well, so we weren't prescriptive with what we wanted the students to do, and you can see that by the wide variety of student films. One thing to note as well, so the way we run our module is slightly different to other university modules. So our module is called a VIP. That's not because we're trying to be better than the other modules. It stands for Vertically Integrated Project. So we get a variety of students from a variety of different years to all work together on filmmaking. So at this moment in time, in this first semester, they're learning the skills, they're learning the tools of the trade. And then next semester, they'll be combining their skill sets to make that wider, like 45-minute documentary that Tom mentioned. So in our student cohort, we have people from the School of History, from the School of Biology, Sustainable Development students, geography students, some mathematicians, and that kind of adds to the nice diversity of students and the diversity of opinions and thoughts of how to make films. And like Tom said, we have a little teaser trailer to show you today. So this is Heather Wallace's film, the one on gowns, Gaudis, and other cult-like activities. Tom said this was in the style of a mockumentary. And Heather told us that when she was designing this film and writing this kind of script treatment, she was very much inspired by the TV series called Philomena's Kunk on Earth that you guys might have seen. It's in a very similar style to that. And I shall play the video now.
I'm at the University of St. Andrews.
Can people hear this?
Home of gowns, Gaudis, and other cult-like activities. But how have these infamous traditions developed over time? How have they changed? And how are they linked to both the natural and built environments of this historic Scottish town? I'm Donald Fisherson, esteemed second-year historian, and I'm on the hunt for answers.
Do you think the University of St. Andrews is a cult?
No. No.
No. No. Why would you ask that?
You heard it here first. The University of St. Andrews is a completely standard academic institute. What the?
Okay, so this is what our students have been producing so far. So Heather was very kind enough to send us this film for you guys to see today. As you can see, it's very much tongue-in-cheek, but again, they're learning the skills, they're learning the tools of the trade of how to make videos, how to edit them, how to write these scripts, and then next year they'll be applying that to the documentary. Okay. Hopefully you guys could hear that okay. The sound was a little bit quiet, but hopefully it was all right. No, we don't want to watch it again. Okay. So we're kind of coming to the end of our first little part of this session. We're making good time. I wanted to talk about the kind of broader impacts of why we think filmmaking and why we would encourage you guys as educators to also use filmmaking in your kind of lessons and modules. And I wanted to make the case, or try and convert everybody to using filmmaking in their lessons by bringing up Bloom's taxonomy here. People have probably seen this before. It's one of these pedagogical tools that we use as educators. It's a framework to discuss and assess the different kind of cognitive levels associated with learning. So very kind of simplistically, the lower two levels of this kind of hierarchy. So the understand and remember are classified as lower level learning. And then if we go from apply, analyze, evaluate, create, these are termed higher level learnings. And especially with our module, we basically have hit all the hierarchy levels of Bloom's taxonomy. A lot of the time when they talk about Bloom's taxonomy, they always say that a good lesson or a good module always incorporates every single aspect of this kind of pyramid. And the reason why I would encourage you all to use filmmaking in your lessons as well is because obviously we have the lower levels of understanding and remembering. The students need to learn what climate change is, what climate impacts look like, what the impacts are in the specific field that we're going to be studying and assessing the changes or assessing the impacts of climate change on. They then are applying this information. They're looking at how they can use this information to write scripts, to talk to people, to have interviews, to have debates. They're analyzing, so they're trying to create a theme throughout their video, so it all kind of nicely ties together. There's a logical flow to their film, their documentary. And then evaluating and creating. They're justifying their video. So it could be that they're making a film to inform and to educate. They could be making a video to perhaps drive social change, to petition the government to do something different in relation to climate change, so on and so forth. And they're creating a video itself. So we may be biased, but using filmmaking and getting your students to create mini films about particular topics is a very good way to incorporate these range of cognitive learnings or cognitive levels of learning so that they get a better understanding of the topic and retain that information. And this is the main thing that we're doing with the students. Obviously, they're making their own film, and you can kind of tell from the kind of very short pictures and summaries that Tom gave that they're all communicating this research in a slightly different way. We have some people using a game show format to try and kind of pitch people against one another. They're using their persuasive skills to look at why we should be promoting and preserving certain heritage sites and not others. Some people are trying to drive social change. There's a call to action. They're offering particular opinions on why the preservations of these sites are important. And some are doing a little bit more of a factual kind of inform and engage kind of film themselves. And I believe that's everything we had for the first section. So after the break, we will be splitting you guys up into little breakout rooms, and you guys will be working together to make your own mini video. It won't be as kind of long as Heather's that we showed a minute ago. We're just giving you a taster of actually making your own films and seeing how you could potentially apply this to your own educational kind of lessons. Yes, so I will zip it now and pass it over to Ryan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anastasia. Thank you very much, Tom. Yeah, it was a very, very insightful presentation. I really valued it right from the beginning. You mentioned, Anastasia, the way stories shape us and how necessary stories are, and something I believe strongly. I think stories, without stories, we have no humanity. So, I think the way it ties in, you're talking about the need for stories and also that need to break those climate sciences that you mentioned, and the fact that we aren't talking about it enough. And as you your experiment of using the chat to get our emotions and the emotions of fear, anxiety, and frustration. And I think all of us as educators can see with our own students this this not knowing what to do, you know, in situations in terms of climate change and what it's doing to our world. And I think Tom, when you spoke about the different heritage sites, it really brought home to all of us what the effects of the climate crisis are. You know, we hear about the floods and the natural disasters, but to actually see what's happening to the treasures that we have in our world, and those who are in fact climate change skeptics or climate change deniers, I think showing them through these documentaries that your students are creating, you know, showing that the spaces and the places that people value will really drive home to them that there is a problem and it needs to be addressed. And I think your initiative to create these videos and allowing your students the critical creativity and giving them the freedom of approach in different ways, you know, in all those different ways that the students chose, whether it's a tongue-in-cheek or ironic or very serious. Yeah, I think it's great. And I think your presentation with you, Anastasia, and Tom, it's clear to all of us and it's very useful. The using video, using film to really create social change and to teach our students how to actively learn through teaching and through film. So thank you very much. So we'll now, as Anastasia said, we'll have a 10-minute break and then we'll regroup for part 2 of the webinar. So it's now my clock 5 to 6. So let's regroup at let's make it 6:06. Okay, so 6:06 we'll all come back. So hopefully to see all of you in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Please download the CapCut if you haven't already. There is a link in the chat. Maybe Daniela, if you'd like to put it into the chat a second time, if you have it on hand. Okay. All right. Thank you. See you all after the break. Thank you. Okay. All right. So welcome back, everybody. So we're now going to I'll now hand you back over to Anastasia and to Tom, and then we will shortly be being set into breakout rooms. Those of you who have been in already, maybe you just had an anteprima of what it's going to be like. Nothing scary. Okay, so I'll now hand you over to Anastasia and Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Okay, welcome back after the break, everybody. So for the second part of today's webinar, we wanted to do a hands-on workshop with you guys and give you guys a taste of the filmmaking experience. And what we've decided to run for this workshop is that we're going to ask you guys to work in groups of, I think, about 4 or 5, and you're going to be working together to make a mini film about climate change. This is going to be about 30 seconds, so it's about the length of time for, say, a TikTok or an Instagram reel. You're going to be using the software CapCut. So this is the link that Daniela put in the chat a little bit earlier. And don't panic if you've never used this software before, or if you're a little bit anxious about using the software. It's very, very user-friendly. The tutors know how to use it, and I have created like a little mini document and guide of how to use the software. So please don't panic about it. It's much easier than you think it is. To give evidence for that, I actually got my mother to make a mini video using this software, and I was a bit mean and I just gave her the document and I left her for half an hour. And after half an hour, she did manage to make a mini video saying how she wanted to go on holiday to the beach somewhere. Okay, so with this workshop, you will have your how-to guide, you will have your tutors as a resource, and you have one another as a resource. Use the people in your group as a resource to work out how to make these films and how to use the software. I have given you here a little bit of a kind of rough timing of how best to use your time within this workshop. It's going to go very, very quickly. So for the first 10 minutes, I would discuss amongst your groups, introduce yourselves, think about the topic that you want to make a mini video about. In the next slide, I have a list of ideas that you might want to use for your video. If you have your own idea, please feel free to use that. In the first 10 minutes, you'll decide what you want to make a video about, plan a little storyline of the video, and write the script or include what kind of text you want to actually include in the video. After those first 10 minutes of prepping what you want to make your film about, in your group, you're going to nominate one lead editor. This person is going to be sharing their screen and they're going to be making the video with everybody else watching them and giving input and feedback to the video making process. You're going to find some suitable video clips and music and you're going to assemble it together. At the end of the workshop, we'll ask you to paste your video into the chat function. You'll export it, paste it into this chat function, and we'll view everybody's videos at the end so we can share in the filmmaking process. These are a couple of ideas about what you might want to make your video on. Again, this is not prescriptive, very much like our students. If you have a particular thing you want to make your film about, please do that. But these are a list of ideas. And to give you guys a little bit of, this is what we're looking for. The other day, I made a little mini video using the CapCut software along the same lines as these video ideas. And so I'm just going to show you what you can make within about 30 minutes. Why does climate change result in extreme weather? Have you ever noticed how the weather's been getting crazier? Climate change is supercharging extreme weather events. It's making them hotter, stronger, and more unpredictable. The rising temperatures mean that there's more moisture in the air, leading to heavier rainfall and more devastating floods. But what can we do? We can switch to green energy sources, and we can reduce our carbon emissions. Okay, that was an example of a little mini 30-second video that I made first thing in the morning the other day. So it is entirely doable to do that in this time, guys, but do not worry if you do not finish your whole filmmaking process or you're making your whole film. It's really just to give you guys a chance to use the software, play with the software, and see what it's like making films. So that's what you're going to be doing. Before we send you out into your breakout rooms, I am very quickly going to show you how to use the CapCut software. So I'm just going to share CapCut, my CapCut screen. Can we see this? Okay. So when you open up CapCut, this is what you're going to see on your screen. It's really, really user-friendly, this software. But how do we use it? First of all, on your screen, you'll see 4 windows. On this left-hand window, you'll see kind of media libraries, stock footage, audio footage, kind of various effects, transitions, all the cool stuff you can do to your video. That will be in this window here. In the middle, you have a player, so you can preview your videos, you can preview your video clips and your final video. The one on the right-hand side is like a details property box. And at the very bottom, this is your timeline. This is where you're going to insert all your media to make your video. So with CapCut, I would recommend that you use their stock library footage and their stock library audios. It'll make things a little bit quicker, but if anybody does want to import media on their machine, your tutors do know how to do this, so they can guide you through this process. But I've opened it up. I'm going to import some video. So in the top left-hand corner, I click on import. I'm going to click on stock materials in the drop-down section below it. And then you'll see this search bar here. You can search through the CapCut stock library for videos that you want. So I want a video of some sea waves. So I'm going to type in C waves, and you see this range of stock video footage up here. What I'm going to do is just click on one, and you can see it's automatically playing it in your little preview panel on the right-hand side. So we have a video here. And then if I decide I like this video and I want to use it in my timeline, you can click on it and drag it down to your timeline here. You can do this with multiple videos. So if I click on another C theme, I can click on it and again, drag it down and incorporate it into my timeline. So that's how you incorporate or import videos into your timeline. If you decide that a video clip is too long, you can trim and shorten it by hovering over the very edge of the video. And you'll see this kind of like line and two kind of arrows either side of it. That's the trimming button. Hover over the edge until you see that. And then you can drag it and trim it and shorten it to where you want to shorten the video to. This can be done on either sides of the video. So if I go to the very beginning, hover over it to see that button. It might be a bit difficult to see it on my screen, guys, sorry. Hover over the edge and then drag it and trim it. Okay, so that's importing videos. If you want to import some audio, click audio in the top left-hand corner. Again, search for what kind of song or music or style that you're looking for. I'm going to go for calming because we've got the C, we want some calming vibes. It will load lots of different music on it. You can click on it, listen to the music, decide if you like it or not. And again, very similarly, drag it down to your timeline. Okay, so that's how you import the media. If you then want to insert text like I did in my video, again, go to the top left, click on text, click on default text, and you can drag and drop to where you want your text to be displayed in relative to your video timeline. And if you want to edit that text, you can click on the default text box in the preview panel, or you can see in your properties panel on the far right-hand side, you can type in whatever text you want. So if I do see calming, and you've got various properties that you can play around with later. So that is the very quick guide. This is the Cliff Notes version of how to use CapCut. Again, your tutors have a little bit of experience with it. You have the how-to guide that will be, I think, pasted into your chat, into your respective breakout rooms. And you can use one another as a resource to work out how to make particular special effects, voiceovers, and yeah, just give it a play, really. This is meant to be a little bit of fun. This is very low stakes, guys. Like, don't worry about it. Just enjoy having a play with the software. And I think that's it, Ryan. So I think we can now send everybody to breakout rooms.
Yeah, thank you, Anastasia. Right, so we're going to be put into different rooms. So we'll see you after the session. Okay, so have fun, guys. See you soon.
Here are our filmmakers. Back to the main session. Welcome back.
We are very aware, guys, this is a very short period of time to make a film. So our module obviously runs over half a semester and they make a film at the end of it. We've kind of given you a Herculean task of making a 30-second film in 45 minutes. So don't worry if you didn't finish. Well done, everybody, for kind of giving it a go. Really, the aim of this was to kind of give you guys a taste of the filmmaking process, of a specific part of the filmmaking. Obviously, we haven't given you cameras to film the footage yourself. We've just given you kind of like stock footage and have just been splicing it together. But it should give you an idea of the various skills that is involved with filmmaking and the kind of various aspects of the filmmaking process and things you have to think about that you don't really know until you've actually given the process a go. So well done, guys. Don't worry if you didn't finish the film. You did a fantastic job everywhere. Do we have time to show a couple, Ryan?
Yeah, I think so. If you guys, Sabrina and those others who want to maybe upload into the chat, So Sabrina, I don't know if you, and then
Trying to export it, but I don't know why it doesn't save into my PC. I'm trying
okay.
my hardest here.
Someone else, maybe if you're able to
We are not
export.
able to upload things into the chat, but
Okay.
I was able to get our groups into the Dropbox. We had to log in. That was the issue.
Okay.
But so ours is there. It's called 1128 for some reason.
Okay. So do you, Jennifer, maybe want to share your screen?
Oh,
and
I
then
could
show
do
her?
that.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was, okay, Alex, Maria, Francesca, and, oh no, I forgot the last name.
Gabi.
Gabi, thank you. Oh goodness. Okay, I will open this and share my screen. Share sound and
Even if we can't hear, we can see the clip, so don't worry.
okay. I'll play the whole thing. I'm sorry about the audio. Okay, here we are. Okay, that was our video.
Yeah, very good.
Great job, team.
That was great.
Sabrina.
Thank you, Jennifer. I have one ready to go for the group that I was in. So this is the work of Elisabetta, and Peter and Mike was in our group as well. So I shall share video.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your help.
My pleasure.
Okay. Can everybody see this? Okay. Okay. That's what the group I was in did. Well done, guys.
Well, thank you, Anastasia. I think the credit, well, we all know where the credit goes. Thank you.
So I think Sabrina, in our group 4, would you like to share it on your PC, Sabrina?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Hopefully your sound works. So hopefully.
I hope so. If it does,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. So I was able to export it. Okay. I'll share the screen. Okay. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. No sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, there was no sound. I'm sorry. I tried.
Yeah. Thank you.
It
Thank
was
you,
the ride
Sabrina.
of the Valkyries, if I'm not wrong. So it was supposed to be very,
Yeah. Our video was a bit apocalyptic, but we put the other videos have seen very positive. Ours was a bit pessimistic, but yeah. Does anyone else have a video they would like to share?
Yeah, we have our video.
Okay.
I can share it.
Thank you, Raul. You made it. Finally, you made it.
We made it. We made it. Like, let's see. There is no sound, and it's a bit of a mishmash, as like this, of videos. And the end, it misses an end, but we had some problems. We did it online. The CapCut online.
Thank you, Raul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raul.
Okay, anyone else? Any other groups like to share their video? Is that everyone? Okay. So I think we'll hand it to Daniela. From my part, thank you very much, Tom, Anastasia, and thank you for everyone. And your videos are very impressive. So good job, all of you. Thank you. So Daniela, if you'd like to.
Yes, thank you very much. This was very interesting and very creative. Congratulations to all of you for your very nice videos. I just wanted to ask, we have like 10 minutes left. Do you have any questions for Anastasia and Tom that you may want to ask? Elena, I remember you had a question for Tom. Maybe you could ask your question now while we're waiting.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, making students work, creating video is such an inspiring activity for them. So I really appreciated the videos the group presented. I was thinking about the feedback because do you know if these students who prepared the video became more aware of the problems? Because just because I'm getting very old, I really feel that we need to make students aware of what is going on. So taking action, preparing films is great, but did they change their attitude? Did they really save the environment, consuming less energy, for example?
Well, that's a great question. This first semester, we've really been, it's more about trying to teach them how to make films. So we're using professional software. We're using Adobe Premiere Pro, and everyone has a proper camera and a microphone recorder and radio mics, clip-on mics and all the rest of it. And then they have to write their scripts and all the rest of it. So they've been very focused on the process of filmmaking, but we had over 30 students apply to take the course, and we said we were only going to take 10, but we had over 30. So I think we had a slightly self-selecting group of students in the first place. They wanted to take the course because they were already very committed to ideas about climate change. So they already had a very good understanding of that. So I wouldn't say necessarily that they've improved their thoughts about climate change yet. I think they're still pretty much at the same level, but they've certainly learned how to communicate those ideas that they already had.
Thanks a lot. I'm thinking twice about it. Yes, it's true. It could be a kind of political awareness of what they can do as young citizens. Can we be students in St. Andrews?
I wanted to ask the same thing. Can we join?
Are you thinking of an online version of your VIP module?
Not yet. So we're still in the very early stages. This is the first year we've run this module. So maybe in the future we'll look at converting it or having a parallel online version of it. But I'm glad you all enjoyed it and had a nice time making the videos. Tom and I can keep you appraised of whether we create our own online version of this. Tom and I will have to discuss this after today.
I mean, one of the things is we're actually, we give all the students cameras, microphones, radio mics, tripods, and so they have all the equipment, and it takes them 10 weeks to get to the stage that you got to in half an hour today. So 10 weeks of between 2 to 4 hours a week as well of actually in the lab going through all the videos. So at the moment, it is very much focused here on St. Andrews, but obviously you're very welcome to come to St. Andrews. It's as long as you can stand the cold, it's very beautiful.
I was joking, of course. We would like to be young again and try to do something for the environment in this way. But of course, it was great. Remember that involving young people in doing is the secret.
Elisabetta is asking if we can have a copy of our videos. So maybe you could share a drive folder with us so that we can make your videos available to at least to our group. If you wanted to, that would be nice. Yeah, I agree with Raisa that it was very useful to try that out. And also, I would like to add what Tom told us a couple of minutes ago, that in the online version of CapCut, it is possible to use the search field, which has been removed, I think, recently, very recently, from the downloaded version. So that was a problem for some groups. Do you have any other questions?
I think there's a question, Jennifer saying, are we going to share the students' videos? So one of the things to be aware of, there is this thing about copyright. So what we can do in St. Andrews, while they're still students, and I'm sure it's the same with all of you and your institutions, is while they're students, they're allowed to go off to the internet and steal whatever they like. However, it means that they can't actually show it to anybody else online, because then they're going to get done for copyright. So we're very much trying to encourage them to film all their own footage. We're in conversation with our music center about going out and actually composing our own music, and so that everything that we have is such so that we can share the videos. And we certainly want to make versions that we can share. That is the intention. But until we've actually seen the final videos and find out what it is that they've stolen from online and what we can maybe replace, because I'm sure that in many cases we can replace a lot of the stuff that they've done, we won't be able to put them online. But we are very hopeful that at some point we will be able to do that, and we will certainly let you all know when that's all done.
Thank you.
There's also a question from Magdalena about the Young Film Festival Climate Change in My Way, Some School Festival competition. So we are encouraging our students to showcase their work to a wider audience. Not so much for this semester, we're kind of viewing everything in-house, and then next semester we'll be doing more potential screenings of their work to a wider audience. So we do have an idea or a kind of future plan to promote the students' films through things like the Green Gown Awards that people might have heard about. And there is a St. Andrews Green Film Festival as well that we might be promoting at, but I'm sure there's international versions as well. But if there's something specific that you think our students' videos might be quite good, please do get in touch with us. But at the moment, we're not showcasing anything at the moment. You saw this kind of teaser snippet of Heather's trailer because she said that she was happy to share it today, but I think we'll see what happens with the students next semester of promoting their films.
Thank you. Okay, as usual, I'm sharing the Mentimeter link to our Mentimeter poll. Please take a few seconds to answer the question. It's very short, but it will really help us improve our webinars. And also, I would like, before leaving, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your creativity. Thank you to the speakers. We've really enjoyed that, and we really are really interested in this kind of activities. So thank you very much for your time. Before you go, I would like also to announce our next webinar that will be held on the 12th of December. It will be a content webinar held by Professor Colin Sage about food and climate. So thank you again, and see you soon, hopefully. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you very much, Tom. We're really grateful.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Bye,
much.
Tom. Bye,
Thank
Anastasia.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.